Funding for this program is made possible by Burke Nursery and Garden Center in Burke, Virginia. You'll find trees and shrubs, perennials and annuals, water garden supplies, houseplants, and bird and gardening supplies. Burke Nursery also provides landscape, plant diagnostic, and installation services, as well as the October month-long Pumpkin Playground Festival featuring hay rides and much more. For more information, you can check out their website or call 703-323-1188. Welcome to Gardening with Burke Nursery, the show where we help you grow your garden and increase the curb appeal of your yard. I'm your host, Misty, the horticulturalist at Burke Nursery and Garden Center. Today, I'm going to share with you some of my favorite perennial plants that flower during the months of fall in a full sun garden. So join me as I show you the sunny side of fall flowers. You know, one of the questions that I get this time of year is, can I plant perennials in the fall? Fall is a great time to plant perennials, trees, shrubs, and even grass seed. As a matter of fact, some people consider it the best time of year. Think about it. The temperatures are cooler, so it's more comfortable for you to be outside. Also, because the temperatures are cooler and there is less stress on the plants and actually less water loss through what we call transpiration, their sweat if you want to call it that. Plus, more energy goes to the roots developments. So what this means is that your perennials will be in better condition to grow when spring comes. So what you see in front of you are all the plants. Not all, there are actually more plants that will grow in the fall months, and they'll give your garden beautiful color. Some of these will even continue into the winter, and they're wonderful pollinators, and they're wonderful food sources for birds even during the winter months. So welcome to what I'd like to call my virtual garden here today, and let's pretend that we're out in the sun. Right here, what I'd like to talk about before I go into the actual plants that I want you to consider for your sun garden are the two usual suspects. This is your chrysanthemum, or the mum. And the mum comes in various different colors. It comes in yellow, it comes in orange, it comes in lavender, it comes in burgundy. And almost every garden this time of year likes to have their mums. The other usual suspect is your aster. And this is actually your New York or New England aster. There are a lot of different asters or a lot of plants in the aster family. And this has a nice wispier little flower that comes in either purple or it comes in a pink. And it is really gorgeous and makes a beautiful statement. But you see them in almost every garden. Almost everyone plants these two. Oh, and in addition, the others are your pansies and also your ornamental cabbages. Those seem to be what I call the prime suspects. So I would like to introduce you to some new plants if you haven't met them before. The first one that I want to introduce you to is called the blanket flower. And it's also known as Gallardia. And it's called blanket flower because it's a native plant, native to the prairie lands, and it blankets or used to blanket all of those lands. And that's why it's called the blanket flower. And bees absolutely adore it. They just love to, and butterflies, can't forget those butterflies. They just love to rest on these plants. And these plants almost look like daisies. And they're in the aster family, which is the aster that I showed you earlier. So it blooms for 10 weeks or more, and it's about 10 inches tall. And then 1 foot, but there are some that can get as tall as 2 feet. And if you want to increase the bloom time for this, what you would do is, this may sound a little frightening, but when you have the tall ones, then you would cut the tall ones back to 6 inches. When you have the 12-inch ones, you'd cut them back almost 3 inches in the summer, and that will actually increase the bloom time. The other is, this is drought tolerant, so it's wonderful for what we call xenoscapes. And xenoscapes, low water gardening. So once established, you don't have to worry about whether to water it or not. First year, all your plants need to be watered because the roots need to be established. But this is a great low maintenance plant. Now, the next plant that I'd like to talk about is its cousin, or what I'd like to call its cousin, and this is the Coreopsis. There are over 100 species of Coreopsis, and Coreopsis will do well not only in full sun, but actually it'll do well in partial shade as well. And this particular Coreopsis, I don't know, has really a red center. And there are other Coreopsis that have thicker leaves, that have thicker flowers, and I even have a picture of what we call a Tickseed Coreopsis. And that Tickseed Coreopsis has very small little flowers and very, very thin, even thinner leaves than this. But you can find whatever type of Coreopsis that you want, that you really enjoy. And these are native plants as well. They're in old farmlands, they're on the roadside, they're in farm fields. The only thing is they don't like to sit in water. So I would not put this in what I call a bog area. You want to make sure it drains well. If it doesn't drain well, then it could get root rot and you could lose this. Now the other is that you want to deadhead this plant. And what deadheading means is that you're going to take some of the flowers off. Deadheading is very easy. And so I'd like to, just before I continue with the next plant, is just show you how to deadhead. First of all, just regular scissors. And then you go and find a flower that is dead. And then you see in this case with the Coreopsis that it has a stem that goes to the leaf. And you just take that stem, you go down to the top of the leaf, and you just cut that off like that. And by deadheading this Coreopsis, I will have extended the bloom time for another several weeks. And not only will I have extended the bloom time, but I also will actually increase the number of blooms that there are. The time period that I stopped deadheading some of my Coreopsis is a few weeks before October, the end of October, beginning of November. And the reason for that is that these go to seed, and goldfinches love the seeds of the Coreopsis. It helps them survive throughout the winter months. I do deadhead a lot of the other Coreopsis because when they go to seed, they grow so well. And you can even start these from seed. Bees love them, butterflies love them, you'll love them. The next plant that I want to show you is the Anise Hyssop. If this were aroma TV, the licorice smell, the anise smell, and even though this is a perennial, this is actually a culinary herb. Yep, You heard me right. You can make tea with the leaves, or you can put the leaves in salad. You can take these spikes, have seeds in them, and you can take the seeds of the spikes and put them in bakery. For example, cupcakes, or an actual cake, or muffins, any kind of baked good. And out of all the pollinators that I know of, as far as pollinating plants, this native plant is one of the most incredible attractors of our native Virginia bees, the mound bees. And a mound bee is very, very small, very blue. A lot of people think it's a fly. That's how small it is. And it glimmers in the sun. Just amazing how it glimmers. And of course, in the studio, I know everybody here working in the studio with me. Thank you, folks. Appreciate that I didn't bring the mound bees in with me, but when they were on this outside, it looked like there were jewels just shimmering throughout this entire plant. It was so amazing. Now, here's one other good thing, folks. Mound bees do not bite. So you don't need to worry. I could, if I wanted, I could fluff my hand across this flower with the mound bees and I'd be fine. And you can even purchase a mound bee hut if you want and actually increase the pollinators. That, though, is for another show. So getting back to the anise, it is a plant that just thrives anywhere. It's one of the easiest plants to grow. It's also a plant that will actually do well in light, very, very light shade. It's another one of those prairie plants. And it's not only native to the United States, as well as the Midwest of the United States, but it's also native to Canada. And usually the colors you'll see in our area are your blues or your purples, but they're also pink, they're white, they're mauve, they're orange, and a lot of these plants in Arizona are actually called hummingbird mint plants because they also attract hummingbirds in addition to the pollinating bees and butterflies, and also other birds love their seeds. And this gets, believe it or not, now this particular one is a dwarf. So this dwarf will only get about 2 feet tall. However, some of these can get as tall as 4 feet and as wide as 4 feet. So if you're looking for a nice culinary herb for your garden that makes an incredibly great statement and blooms well into late fall, I highly recommend the Anise Hyssop, also known as Agastache. I have another mint to show you. This is catmint. And if you were to rub the catmint, you get a little bit of that catnip flavor. Also, you can tell that this has been outside since I have a little bit of my tree leaves that are dropping in the plant. It also has the spiky, but let me just show you the difference in the spikes. The spikes on the Anise Hyssop are really tight, very, very tight. The spikes on the catmint are looser, and the whole catmint is looser, where the Anise Hyssop is what we call erect. So if you're looking for something more formal, the Anise Hyssop. If you're looking for something more casual, perhaps the catmint. It is not catnip, even though they're in the same family. Some cats, they love catnip, but they could care less about the catmint. Other cats, they'll only come near this if you break some of the leaves off and they can smell it. but it's a nice addition to your garden. And this is not, though, a native plant. This is actually native to Europe and northern Iran. And I started saying it comes, or maybe I didn't, but it does come in white, and it comes in lavender and the blue that you see here. And like a lot of these plants, you want to deadhead it. And I already showed you how to deadhead it, but if you're not sure in this plant, because of the spikes, see this right here is starting to go. So I would take this one, the leaves here, there's not enough leaves there. I would take it down quite a bit if I were to deadhead that one. And then finally, I'd like to talk to you about goldenrod. Just need to move over a little here to get the goldenrod. Let's see. As you can see, goldenrod is a very tall plant. And this plant has, these are the flowers up here. But these flowers haven't started yet turning any color. And I have a picture of what it looks like when it's in full bloom. It's amazing. And the bright yellow is just phenomenal. You will find goldenrod almost everywhere. Whether you're talking farmlands, whether you're talking fields, whether you're talking roadside, you may even be talking about your own location. Anywhere, though, you will find the goldenrod. What's important is goldenrod and ragweed look the same. Ragweed is what people are allergic to. Goldenrod does not have the same allergens. Now, some people are just basically allergic to flowers, and I feel bad for you. But then again, you could have more outdoor gardens as opposed to bringing them indoors, I suppose. But very few people are actually allergic to the goldenrod. It is the ragweed, which looks very, very similar. The difference with the ragweed, this has a very tight flower. Go here. This has a very tight flower. And ragweed is more of a fan. Its flower is not quite as tight. So it's almost as if your hand is, your fingers are coming out, where here you have a more erect, tight. And the goldenrod will get 3 to 5 feet tall. The width, it stays fairly, the plant itself actually stays fairly narrow, but because of the way it roots, it will continue rooting and it'll continue getting wider and wider and wider. You don't need to divide this. It takes care of itself. Bees love it. Oh, and the other thing that I forgot to mention was deer resistant. This is definitely deer resistant. I don't know if it's rabbit resistant. Now, if you need to stake this, then basically that means that it's in an area that's a little too wet and you need to put it in a drier area. Also, if you try to grow it from seed, it will take 3 years before it starts putting out any flowers. And I don't know why, but I've been told by individuals that this is actually very popular in Europe. So a lot of European gardens love their goldenrod. Now, before I go to the final plants that I want to show you, I do want to go back on a couple things. And that's what's deer resistant, or as I prefer to call it, deerless eaten, and what's not. So the goldenrod is definitely deer resistant. The, your hysops, Anise Hyssops, culinary herbs are rarely deer resistant, and so absolutely this one right here, nope, deer love it. So if you have a deer problem, it will be worse. Your blanket flower and your Coreopsis, to remind you, wouldn't it be neat if we could do this with our gardens, where we could just move the plants around this easily? Well, technically, there's a way you could do it if you really wanted to, which is plant the pots in the ground, and then when you decide to move, you can. I don't know if that's something you'd want to do. And then this is also deer resistant. Your mums and your asters are not, sadly, but at least you know that there are fall flowers that you can plant that are deer resistant, or as I like to say, deer less eaten. And then I would like to show you the last two summer plants, or I'm sorry, excuse me, we are talking fall here. Fall plants that blossom. This is, both of these plants are sedums or stonecrop. Stonecrop is an interesting succulent plant. There are stonecrops that grow as ground cover. There are stonecrops that are huge, such as this autumn fire stonecrop. There are stonecrops that are native to the United States, and those are usually your low-lying stonecrops, because those are the stonecrops that actually prefer to be in the woods and in shade. These two, at least the autumn fire, a lot of you may have heard of a stonecrop called the autumn joy. Well, this is basically the autumn joy on steroids. It's larger than the normal autumn joy, and it's also has, unfortunately, I don't have any that are blossoming quite yet, but all these will turn incredibly red, red, red. And this one is known as pop-up. And so the pop-up, it's already beginning to turn its little flowers, so they're getting a little red. It's lower, where this can get 3 feet tall. This will only get maybe a foot tall, but this spreads. And actually this, I need to restate that. This gets 1 foot tall, and this actually spreads to 2 feet. So it could be almost a nice little ground cover crop. But the autumn joy is a lot of sedums that are cultivated, that are large sedums and succulents, are actually from either Europe, or they're from Asia, or they're from Iran, in that area. So some are native and some are not. Are they deer resistant, rabbit resistant? No. Nope. So if you have problems with deer or rabbits, please be careful where you plant your sedums. So we're almost done with our little garden tour here, but one of the things that I definitely want to cover is a little planting advice. You always want to plant in an area that, at least with the sun plants, that's well-drained soil. Also, the other is when you dig the hole, you never dig the hole deeper than where the pot is. But it's the size of the width that matters. And my little virtual garden here, We could pretend this is real clay soil, but let's say that this black cloth is the actual garden area that I'm going to dig. So this is to show you that what I want to dig here is double the size. So I'm digging almost double the size around this plant. And that's the important thing. You need all this loose soil around here. And the reason you need that loose soil is so that the roots, especially because we have clay soil, the roots can actually extend. So remember that as a tip when you're growing your garden and when you're planting your plants. I hope that you enjoyed learning about the sunny side of fall gardens. I'm your host, Misty, and I'd like to thank you for spending your time with me here at Gardening with Burke Nursery. I'm looking forward to helping you grow your garden.
Funding for this program is made possible by Burke Nursery and Garden Center in Burke, Virginia. You'll find trees and shrubs, perennials and annuals, water garden supplies, houseplants, and bird and gardening supplies. Burke Nursery also provides landscape, plant diagnostic, and installation services, as well as the October month-long Pumpkin Playground Festival featuring hayrides and much more. For more information, you can check out their website or call 703-323-1188.